All right, everyone, welcome back to The Cloud is Calling. We are here with episode 5, and we are kicking off our next segment of these episodes, focusing specifically on cloud training. And joining me as a co host for the next several episodes is the one and only the bald Azure guy, Mr. Corey Knapp. Corey, how's it going, buddy?
Big bold Azure guy. Don't forget
Big
that one.
bald Azure guy. Yeah, I'm
There
sorry.
you go.
I
No,
totally
it's
got
going
that
well.
wrong.
It's going well, my
It's
friend. How
going
you
well.
doing?
I'm doing good. So, as Corey always loves to joke that he works for this, slave driver type person, that would be me.
Yes.
so, but he's here at his own volition. I'm not forcing him to be here in any way, shape, or form.
Check is in the mail.
Yes, totally. But we are super excited to have everyone along on this journey. We want to talk about um, getting everyone's cloud skills into what we would like to call a modern era. We've
Mm,
come to a point where there's so many certifications, so many different things that people feel like they have to learn and tackle. And Corey and I can speak to our own personal experiences with this. It
yeah.
just
Yeah.
feels overwhelming. And we'll talk about some of the things that Corey is doing. We'll talk about some of the things that I am doing. And we'll be bringing along some guests over the next several episodes to share their insights, their thoughts about where you should focus if you want to accelerate your journey into the cloud, maybe get started with your journey into the cloud,
Mm.
and or help really up level your career. So we're going to start this stage off by just sharing our experiences and kind of what we're doing. So Corey, you and I were chatting the other day
We
about, I
were?
think there's this fundamental need to get back to the basics, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, there's all these entry level certifications, but right, if I'm a cloud admin, like what do the basics mean to me in your
See,
in your thoughts, and then obviously I'll give my
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah. But back to the basics, to me means know your foundations. And that's where I've been trying with the students I've got outside, the people I talk to internally here. I want everybody to realize that there has to be a set level of knowing your foundations, knowing your networking, knowing your subnetting, basic security, what a database is. Even if you're not a database person, what a database is and what it can do. Um, you've got to know things like basic project management. You've got to know basic scripting. If you're talking Azure, you're talking PowerShell, Azure CLI, maybe some Python here or there. You don't need to be a master, but you have to have the basics down. And in order to take that next step into the cloud and really accelerate your career, the foundational certs are great, but they're just that. They're a stepping stone. They're the key to the gateway to get into cloud. Really setting yourself apart means making sure that all of your foundational skills have been truly leveled up.
Yeah, I really think from a foundational perspective, it's no longer that the fundamentals are the foundations. I think when you look at across the various cloud providers, it's really that associate level that has
Yep.
become the foundations. And to Corey's point, um, if you're in Azure, it is. It's CLI, it's PowerShell. Yeah, maybe a little Python,
Mm-hmm.
Bicep,
Yeah,
ARM,
bicep big time.
yeah, JSON, right? Needing to understand those, Terraform from a multi-cloud
Mm.
perspective,
One thing we
you know,
left out: Linux.
Linux, absolutely.
Yep.
Knowing Linux, if you're sitting here like, oh my God, I'm a Windows guy, screw Linux, you need to revert that thinking and start to love Linux, just as Satya constantly talks about loving and being a part of Linux because you can run Linux on Windows now.
Yep.
I do. I run Ubuntu on my on my Windows PC here that you guys are currently watching us on. But I think to your point, right? Networking, subnetting, and I talked about this in my episode with Shannon. The fundamentals or the core doesn't change a whole lot, surprisingly.
Mm.
Like when you go into the cloud, there are a few things that are different,
Sure. Sure.
candidly, right? I come from a Cisco background. Cisco networking and cloud networking are different. There are things you have to unlearn and then
Oh
relearn.
yeah.
but everything else you kind of do is the same. And to your point, I think from a key perspective, if I'm either just started in cloud or I'm looking to transition into cloud, what would you feel is kind of the most important couple of skills? I don't want to say a single skill because I don't think there's any way
Sure.
we could say a single skill. But in your mind, what are probably the most important skills you
Let's
think?
just from a basic cloud standpoint. Let's not focus on DevOps or cloud engineers or whatever. Just as a basic cloud admin, I think you should know basic scripting. I think you should definitely know. You want to focus on anything in networking. Focus on subnetting. Are you working with the /16 or /24 virtual network? What does that mean? How many IPs are in that virtual network? What are the reserved IPs? And that's not a whole lot. You can learn a lot of this stuff in a couple days and just file it away. Um, those are probably the also basic security rules. What ports apply for what protocols? These are things that you a lot of times you will have picked up doing on-prem data center stuff, whether you're a one-man IT shop or one-woman IT shop, where you're dealing with several rows of racks. Um, but these are things that if you've forgotten or you haven't used in a while, I used to do Cisco 20 years ago. Been a long time, but a lot of the things I learned when I did Cisco still apply today. And that's the thing. The protocols, the concepts, the practical knowledge doesn't change. The implementation may change. The configuration may change, but all of the concepts and theory you've learned in courses, on the job training, or college still apply. So it's a, but a lot of people have when they get complacent. They don't use those skills every day. They're not as sharp as they used to be. And like I said, when I first started doing cloud, geez, 8, 9 years ago, whatever it was, when O365 first came out, doing Exchange Online, um, I realized my networking skills were not as sharp as they had been back in 1997. So, time to go refresh. And because we've been through this before, a lot of times the refresh is simply that: watching a quick video, reading a quick book, and taking a look and see what can help me really bring those skills to the forefront again. It doesn't mean you have to learn everything all over again. It's just watch a quick YouTube video. Um, and then as you do that, you'll notice that any future work you do, any future certifications you go after become easier because that knowledge is fresh in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like the thing of short, like consumable things because I don't think
Mhm.
if I'm looking to refresh my skills, especially in today's world, I don't have
Oh, I know.
you. I mean, we know each other's schedules. If I had 2 hours just to sit down and do whatever, I don't know what I would do with myself.
Oh, you mean most of our days? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, most of our days. Yeah, totally. But I think right, and that's kind of where, candidly, both Corey and I are trainers. We teach, cloud courses. Um, Keeping people's attention for 2, 3 hours is tough.
It's tough. Very tough.
And we always tell people, look, 30 minutes, hour at most, to consume some of these concepts. But the key concept I think that most people forget is repeatability or sustainability or consistency, right? Whatever acronym, adjective you want to apply to that phrase, it ultimately boils down to consistency, making sure each day you're doing that 30 minutes to 1 hour.
Mhm.
And these are things that I think a lot of prominent IT trainers have been preaching for a decade, if not
Yeah,
longer.
absolutely.
Um, but especially in today's world with cloud, things change so frequently, that that's where that consistency is going to pay off. In my mind, is you have to just constantly, day in day out, be like, okay, this is what I'm going to
Yep.
do. Just want to keep growing. Here's something new. Let me go dive into that. Go look at that. Um, I, I I hate to say this. I mean, yes, should you take time off? Absolutely. Mental health is paramount and is important.
Very important.
Um, had the best weekend previously, right? I literally dropped my phone off, dropped my phone, didn't pay attention to it, had a fantastic weekend. So it's not to say that's not important, but I was still consistent in doing something along the growing, learning lines. And so that's what I think you out there in the audience, like that's the biggest thing is being consistent.
Yep.
Um, from that perspective. And then I agree with Corey with all the other basic skills, scripting, basic security, basic networking, subnetting, ports, protocols. And surprisingly enough, I think from a networking perspective, at least from what I've seen, um, IPv6 is starting to
Yes,
creep
it
up
is.
there.
Yep.
We thought back in 2008, there was the big launch of it. Everyone's like, oh, IPv6. And then it just kind of flatlined. Nobody gave it two thoughts. But now you've probably got 10, 15 prominent tech companies who run
Yep.
IPv6 internally. Um, all of the three major cloud providers being amongst those. They all use IPv6 internally. I've seen it pop
Mhm.
up on networking certification, cloud networking certification exams. So that can't be ignored anymore.
Yeah.
You need to start learning that, and that's a whole different, right? Heck with binary. Now you need to learn hexadecimal. So
Yeah.
um, but from or from I think our perspective, what are some of the things that we think about when we're going to learn certifications? And we were chatting
Well,
about this yesterday.
it's funny because one of the things I also teach is a lot of us. It's been a decade, 2 decades, maybe even longer since high school or college. People who are jumping back into certifications or testing or just simply skilling up and learning. Think about it. When we were on all on-prem guys, Exchange only changed every 5 to 6 years. Windows Server would stay in effect for a decade. Yeah, there may have been new versions of it, but no one was forced to upgrade. So a lot of us have to learn how to learn all over again. You've got to look at different things like Pomodoro techniques, which is where you do simple chunks of learning, take a break, reward yourself, do different things like that. Um, Me personally, I cannot. I mean, maybe it's because of my age. Who knows? I mean, I used to have hair that was down to here. I mean, I'm just saying. But maybe it's
We'll find a
because
picture
of
of
my
that one
age.
day.
But I will provide one for you, my friend. Um, but a lot of it is that I can't retain. If I start doing a 3, 4, 5, 6 hour study cram, you'll notice you only really retain 2 or 3 hours of that.
Yeah,
Um, so to me, the biggest things are how do you learn? Are you a visual learner? Are you a practical learner? Are you an auditory learner? Take notes. How do you take notes? A lot of people can't type and take notes at the same time and retain the knowledge. When you actually handwrite your notes, whether it's on a tablet like I've got here, or I used to use notebooks, it
hmm
activates different centers of your brain that actually enables you to retain knowledge better. A lot of times I would take those physical notes in handwritten form and then type them over into OneNote so I can access them from whatever phone, tablet, or computer I'm looking at. So that's a big thing too. Is a lot of us have to kind of re-engage our brains in a different way that we haven't done in a long time. I mean, think about it. I mean, what we did in college is a lot different than what we do now. It's all book form. Now with the cloud, everything is practical experience knowledge. I mean, we can hire all the people in the world who have certifications up the wazoo, put it point
yeah,
blank. But it doesn't mean anything without practical knowledge. I don't care if you are a master certified architect in all three cloud platforms. If you've never actually done the work, you're not qualified.
yeah,
So you've and guys like me and you, like I said, we were stable for 10 years where when it was all on prem, we didn't have to worry about constantly scaling up. The cloud doesn't just change yearly, it changes quarterly, monthly, sometimes weekly now. How many features do you see in Microsoft Azure now that are in general public preview that you can start learning before they're required to use? I mean, things like Azure Purview on the data side was in public preview for months, almost a year, but people were using it.
hmm
So you had to.
oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, there are features today that are
Mhm.
still, I think, listed as preview, but are considered general knowledge
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
across all the cloud providers. And yeah, I think writing stuff down, I do that as well. I use my tablet, my OneNote. Things, something that's worked for me lately is standing. I don't sit at my desk and Consume my learning. Yep, there he goes. Down, down,
There,
down.
this is my standing
Yeah,
desk,
that's
and
your
now I'll just
standing
do
desk
this.
going up and down. I knew it. But
You knew what happened.
I knew it would happen. But yeah, I stand, right? I'm engaging some other thing. I'm not saying, get on a treadmill, but if that works for you, that's fine. Some people, right? How many people, I'm not presuming you go to the gym, but maybe you do. I know I do. You go into the gym,
Sorry.
people have their phones, they have their
Yep.
AirPods in. I would venture a good 50, 60%, right? Listening to an audiobook, listening to a podcast, something of that nature.
Hmm.
You as an IT professional can do that too. Listen,
Yeah.
go to your favorite podcast provider, Apple, Spotify, you name it. Listen to a cloud podcast. Consume
Absolutely.
that knowledge, right? If that works for you, you're doing physical activity, you're listening, you're engaging multiple. I think that's kind of become the norm is
Yeah.
you can't sit and just watch a screen and hope to keep it. To Corey's point, right? You'll be lucky to retain 30%.
Yeah. And a
You'll
lot of
do more.
times, the fun thing about those podcasts, those audiobooks, I mean, we all know how much fun it is to study, right? I mean, you're sitting here reading, and don't get me wrong, the Microsoft Learn documentation is top notch.
Oh yeah.
Um, but how many pages of that can you read before you start to kind of zone out? I mean, having that fun conversational tone in a podcast or hearing an audiobook, even when you're doing your morning commute, you're sitting on the train, you're sitting in traffic, you're on the Pacific Coast Highway in California, just sitting there doing nothing. Well, you know what? Take advantage of that time. And sometimes you'll realize you may not be paying 100% attention, but it's to what you'll hear, little bits that you pick up in your
Your
in your
brain's
head.
picking up. Yep.
Exactly. It's kind of like a different form of osmosis. It's passive learning. So I try and surround myself with stuff like that all the time. I listen to different YouTube channels. People go do live podcasts. I mean, we do our own stuff too. And especially from the standpoint that you and I are a little different, we are also trainers. So we have to learn the knowledge to share the knowledge. So we have to constantly, it's one thing to use the knowledge and on a practical experience every day, but to teach it as well. You'll get some questions that you and I are like, I really have to go look into that because I had never considered doing things that way because it's just a new people come at it from different angles. You know what I mean? So we have to really learn the insides and outsides and the ins and outs of technology to be proper trainers. But it also helps us become better consultants and better delivery people and better pre-sales and post-sales, you name it. Uh, that's kind of like why I love what we do because we deal with so many different technologies, whether they're old or cutting edge. We're constantly learning every day.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to say I surround myself with a lot of things, but I have so many different things going on from a similar
Yep.
perspective. That's how I think I just kind of pick those different things up. And I think it's helpful for me, at least in my life, that one of my younger kids, um, is interested in a similar thing. And so it's kind of a shared, right? So I'm getting to
Hmm.
spend time with her, but also doing something that involves like a passion of mine. And it's become kind of like a hobby of hers. Like she got her school laptop. And so I'm sitting down and helping her figure out how to navigate a Chromebook. Have I ever used a Chromebook? No. This is the
Right.
first time I've ever touched one. I'm used to Windows or Apple. That was my experience in school. So this is a different experience for me. So not only is she learning and learning basic computer skills that I'm helping her
Yep.
teach, but I'm learning how to navigate Chrome OS, which I've never touched before. And so it's fun. Like that's I think ultimately, if I were to give out the best advice for training, do whatever you can to make it fun because
Yes.
when you're making it fun, the the amount that you'll retain, the amount you'll get out of it will be so much more than just sitting here listening to us drone on about something.
Oh,
And we don't
yeah. I
like to
mean,
drone
you
on.
and I,
That's
no.
that's 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 the antithesis of what we
We
like
may
to
like to
do.
talk. We may like to
We like
talk.
to
That is
talk, but
true.
yeah, we want to make it interesting. We want to make it fun.
And like I
But
said,
speaking of,
that time limit goes. I'm sorry to cut you off there, man, but that
yeah,
time limit also goes where if we're doing a constant drone on session for a training class, you're right. 2 hours is about the limit for most people. But there are days where you and I are called upon to do 4, 6, or 8 hours of training in a day. You've got to make it interactive. I prefer teaching in a live boot camp style, even if it is remotely. I encourage interaction. I will stop for questions because that interaction makes it more fun and more engaging
Yeah.
for the student.
Yeah. Encourage interaction. I give my students a wealth of breaks,
Hmm.
like almost
Have
every
to.
hour. Like, okay, go take a break. Because you need to get up, you need to move around. Like, stop staring at me, stop staring at the slide or whatever I'm doing. So, but speaking of learning and fun, I know that you're working on something fun, so I thought I would uh, help give the audience a tease about kind of some of the things that you're working on from a training perspective that they might be able to check out here coming up
My
in the near
personal stuff you're
future.
talking about.
I'm talking about just all things the big bald Azure guy in general.
No problem. Yeah. Well, I do have my YouTube channel called The Big Bald Azure
Yes.
Guy. Please look it up. You guys can all connect with me on LinkedIn as well under Corey Knapp. And if you look up Big Bald Azure Guy on LinkedIn, it's also in there as my nickname. So it'll come up, it'll bring up my name as well.
I need to get you a link tree where it just has everything for you.
I'm actually in the process of doing that. So the funny thing is, you said the word back to basics. I'm doing a
Mhm.
back to the basics, back to the future type themed. Um, right now, it's at 33 lessons that I'm
There you
scheduled to
go.
start releasing. I'm hoping next week they're going to start releasing 2 or 3 a week, focusing on everything from Azure fundamentals, networking fundamentals, scripting, database, DevOps concepts, security, you name it. Anything you can think of that could be a foundational skill. Now, you may not need to check them all out. Maybe this isn't going to apply to you, but I want to make sure that people who are looking to get in the cloud get a taste of what it really means to be all in on the cloud. There could be, and like I said, part of your job, if you're working simply cloud security in a SOC, a security operations center, it may not apply to you to do database work. That's fine. Skip that lesson. I have no problem with that. But you and I have been around long enough that we've been exposed to just about everything there is, whether it's
Mhm.
on prem or in the cloud. I'm personally reaching out into data and AI now. I got exposed to it a few years back. I love machine learning. I love artificial intelligence stuff. No, we're not creating the next Terminator. I get that. But we're trying to create learning models, create Jupyter notebooks, things like that. That maybe you're hearing us now saying, well, what is all that stuff? All it takes is an opportunity to get on your computer, Google what's a Jupyter notebook, what is machine learning, what is IPv6. Derek, you mentioned that earlier.
Yep. Mhm.
Um, it's one of those things that I have a 3-step plan. I'm going to teach a course on how to learn as well, but I also have a 3-step plan called Engage, Enhance, Enforce. Engage a topic you're curious about, watch a simple YouTube channel, enhance those skills, and then finally enforce it either by putting it into practice or taking a certification to kind of baseline your knowledge. Um, I'm working on a book right now that I'm going to be releasing hopefully by the end of the year. We'll find out as
Yeah, we'll
well.
find out. Yeah.
So I've got a lot of stuff going on. I will also, I'm talking to other people about releasing some official, not official, but some Azure certification courses.
Yeah.
I've got a lot going on. Plus, I work for this slave driver of a manager who's sitting here next to me virtually. So,
Oh,
but
yeah, okay. I'll keep you busy. No.
I know you will. I know you will. But
Yeah.
and that's you got to admit the part of the fun of us working together is because we've been friends for so long. I mean,
Mhm.
we know each other's schedules. I know when you're out of town. You know when I've got family things. We respect those boundaries. You and I will talk occasionally after hours or on the weekends for 5, 10 minutes just to check in. And if we don't talk for a week or two, it's one of those things. Hey, what's been going on? We
Yep.
talk like we talk shop and
Yeah.
or how's the family doing? Um, and I also I am going to be doing a biweekly Ask Me Anything live seminar.
There
I'm
you go.
teaming up with some other folks out there who you may have heard of, Bearded IT Dad,
Mhm.
Zach from IT Career Questions, a couple of new guys like Bad Panda Tech. I stood a Discord server up the other day to encourage study groups. Um, so I'm doing a lot of different things that you'll see published continuously through the end of the year, which is going to be
Yep.
a lot of fun. So
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I can't wait. Um, yeah, no, I know you've got a lot of going on, and a lot of people are probably sitting there like, "Oh, wow, these guys are doing a lot." We've been at this for a while, so I think some of the best advice I've ever gotten is, when you look at somebody else and kind of what they're doing, don't measure yourself by that.
No,
Measure yourself by where you were yesterday and where you are today. Okay. Drown out us, drown out everyone else out there. Where were you at 8 a.m. today? And where are you going to be at 8 a.m. tomorrow? And that's the measuring stick.
I
Okay.
saw a really good, I don't know if it was a meme or just a graph I saw the other day
Yeah.
that said the first picture was just a steady up climb in progress. And yes, that is progress. But this, when you're studying, up, down, up, down,
Up, down. Yeah.
it's still progress. Whether you increase by 0.5% one day or 50% in one day, it's still progress. It is going to be a lifelong journey, especially in cloud. Your studies are never done. Now, you may take a year or two off and getting certified here and there, but you're going
Yeah.
to learn new things every day. And that's if you love figuring out puzzles, if you love being exposed to new things and new technologies, the cloud will never let you down. That's for sure.
No, never. Um, this has been fun, and we're going to continue
Absolutely.
it. We're going to keep people entertained over the next several episodes. We've got some fantastic guests lined up, like Mr. Mike Pfeiffer,
Mr. Mike.
Mr. Mike. Ned Bellavance will be joining us also for an
Yep.
episode. So stay tuned for that. And then we will also have a gentleman by the name of Bart Castle, who will be teaching us about all things AWS and
Mr. Bart.
what Mr. Bart, all his experiences around learning, teaching. So if you are somebody who is looking to upskill your cloud, learn more about cloud, or just career change, looking where to start, these next several episodes are going to be for you. And so tune in, reach out to us. Corey and I, we're both on social media. We always are happy to interact and respond to anyone. If you have questions or just need some general tips, we would love to see and interact with all of you. Corey, thank you for just
Not a
sitting down
problem.
and having a chat. We'll be having a few more of these. Um, Look forward to our guests coming up and making sure that everyone is focused in on learning up various cloud skills. And so until next time, folks, remember the cloud is calling. Take care, everyone.